Live from Ohio University, you're watching WOUB2, television for Athens County.
The elections filing deadline is scheduled for tomorrow. Good afternoon, I'm Evan Armour.
And I'm Rachel Howard. The Athens City Council may have a new challenger candidate on the ballot. Democrat Andrea DeMott has until tomorrow to complete her candidacy. The Post reports that the part-time Ohio University computer science professor took out a petition last week to run for the First Ward Council seat. This puts DeMott against incumbent Kent Butler, who has held the seat since 2007. To be included on the May ballot, DeMott will have to turn in 25 signatures to the Board of Elections by 4 p.m. tomorrow.
Current City Council members already are dealing with a reduced 2011 city budget. Last night, they stood against the State General Assembly, which is considering a tax bill that would take even more from local budgets around Ohio. Athens Midday's Jacob Durr was at that special session and joins us live with the story.
The tax bill in question would get rid of the estate tax, which helps fund local governments. Council members say that if cuts go any deeper, public safety could be in jeopardy.
Ordinances for third
The mood was grim last night at a special session of the Athens City Council.
You know, there's not much left to cut. I'm sure a few things, but you know, this is very, very serious.
The state budget was the issue on the council's mind. Council unanimously approved a resolution urging the Ohio General Assembly not to cut local money. The proposed cuts include the estate tax, sometimes called the death tax, and also a part of the general fund that has existed since the 1800s.
So in other words, this could have very tragic consequences on the public health and safety in this community. So we absolutely have to do our best. I'm going to shoot off a few emails after council or maybe tomorrow.
The council expects the plan will cut 10% of their budget, with 50% of the general fund going to police and fire departments, according to Councilwoman Bain. That belt can't get any tighter.
There's no doubt that if these are cut, either one of them, or if one's eliminated and the other one is cut, we will see a direct effect on how many police and how many police officers and firefighters that we can have in the city.
In the end, Council President Bill Bias had choice words to describe the General Assembly's plan.
One more point. At a time that we are looking at all the other cuts, to eliminate two sources of revenue like this on top of it, just to me is ludicrous.
Yeah, and it's been...
Between the local government fund and the estate tax, that cut could be about $1 million from the general fund. The council plans to speak with Congresswoman Debbie Phillips and Senator Jimmy Stewart later this week. Reporting for Athens Midday, I'm Jacob Durr.
All right, thanks, Jacob. Athens Mayor Paul Weil is refusing to sign off on a pay raise for himself and other city officials. All but one Athens City Council member is proposing a 2% pay raise for city officials. However, they need Mayor Weil's signature to make the ordinance official, and Mayor Weil says he's not going to sign that proposal. City Law Director Pat Lang says he too will refuse the raise. Allahu Ghazni is the only council member voting against the raise. He says the city does not have enough money for raises. This year's budget is about the same as last year's, but the city eliminated 4 positions, and City Council has already refused to increase its pay to save money.
The Athens Town Hall meeting will hold an open microphone session at the Community Center this evening. The meeting begins at 6:30. Citizens are encouraged to express any views they may have. The committee will take all perspectives into account and wishes to bring diversity into the discussion. Athens County Commissioners say they will question dog warden Jeff Coons later today. Commissioners received an anonymous letter accusing Coons of using county vehicles for personal use. Athens County Commissioners have discussed use of county vehicles with Coons once before. Commissioner Lenny Eliason says this is a problem not easily solved.
I don't know if you can ever prevent somebody from doing that, but you can put procedures in place to minimize the extent it happens. Sometimes it's going to happen on an emergency basis, but you want to make sure you're controlling those costs, controlling those happenings.
The commissioners will decide whether there was any violation of county vehicle policy after they talk to Coons.
That study we reported on yesterday indicating Ohio University students are critical of athletic spending is putting the general fee spending under scrutiny. Becky Watts, Chief of Staff to the OU President, is defending the spending, saying that the general fee spending is set by a committee of students.
They hear presentations from different programs, and many programs at the university receive general fee support, not just intercollegiate athletics.
Watts also said the responses given in the survey do not accurately represent the demographics of the university. Watts was a guest on WOUB's Newswatch last night.
Thousands of protesters in Egypt are still demanding change in the government, but in a more peaceful way. People stood shoulder to shoulder in Cairo today for what has been dubbed the March of Millions. Families went together, even bringing children, and people took food and drinks to share. Although there was no sign of violence during the march, more than 100 deaths have been reported since last week when rallies began, calling for an end to their president's 30-year rule. Protesters have caused the government to deploy the army for the first time in a generation. The government has also cut off internet service in the area. The protesters in Egypt are being watched closely by some Athens residents as well. Former Egypt expatriate and current OU student Luke Kaufelt says President Mubarak is not doing enough to calm the chaos. He says that some of the looters are actually members of Mubarak's party, the National Democratic Party.
This is his idea of control, saying to the Egyptian people, well, if you're going to fight against my police, you're going to fight against me. This is what Egypt is going to be like without my power there.
Kaufelt says that 60% of the country is under 30, so most people in Egypt don't know what life is like without an autocracy, and their goal is a democracy.
Jordan's royal court says King Abdullah has sacked his government and asked an ex-army general to form a new cabinet. This move follows street protests calling for political reform inspired by the unrest in Tunisia and Egypt. U.S. intelligence is warning Wall Street executives that they may be the target of a terror plot. Officials say a Yemen-based group of militants might send packages or bombs or chemical or biological agents through the mail. The financial institutions are being urged to increase mailroom security.
After a 3-month reign, the world's oldest living person has died. 115-year-old Eunice Sanborn passed away early yesterday morning in her Jacksonville, Texas home. Sanborn's caretaker says she died peacefully. Courthouse records show Sanborn was 114 years old, but her family says the U.S. Census Bureau incorrectly recorded her birth year as 1896 instead of 1895. Sanborn became the world's oldest person in November after a French nun died. Bessie Cooper, a 114-year-old from the state of Georgia, now holds the title of world's oldest person. Ohio wants to stop sludge. The state wants to ban farmers from spreading sewage sludge on their fields during the winter. The Ohio EPA says the ban would help prevent stream poisoning during thaws or unseasonable rainstorms. The EPA first proposed the ban in 2007, but withdrew it because of backlash from sewage workers and farmers.
Well, sludge is the least of their worries in southwest Japan, where Mount Shinmo volcano had its largest eruption yet this morning. The explosive blast sent smoke more than a mile into the atmosphere. There are more than 100 homes near the volcano, and local leaders continue to urge people to evacuate. Local observatory workers say that large rocks and hot gas coming out of the volcano could affect up to 2 miles from the crater. Here's something your kids might like to hear. Playing video games can actually make you smarter. Some experts are saying that video gamers can build brain cells and develop problem-solving teamwork, also decision-making skills. Your kid could even put it on their resume. Businesses and universities are starting to use interactive simulations as training sessions. Well, good hand-washing practices could help prevent those common winter illnesses.
An obese woman could be less likely to get screened for one type of cancer. Find out why when Athens Midday returns.
The vaccine protects against human papillomavirus, a virus spread through sexual contact. The HPV vaccine is already recommended for girls to prevent cervical cancer. This time of year, prevention is on the minds of everybody, preventing colds and the flu. The Athens Health Department says there's one thing that could help more than anything else, but only about 1 in 3 people do it. Melissa Ferguson is live in the Athens Midday newsroom with the sanitary facts.
That's right, Evan. You've probably heard your mother say, wash your hands before dinner. Well, turns out Mom was right. The health department says if you want to keep from getting sick, wash your hands thoroughly, especially if you're in the food industry. You waltz through the day touching everything from food to door handles to computer keyboards. But do you realize how many germs you spread and how many stay on your hands? Adele Hansen inspects local businesses to make sure they're sanitary for the health department. She says washing hands is the single most important thing you can do to prevent illness.
I think people give real good adherence to the hand washing policy if they're ingrained in it, if it becomes habit. Unfortunately, when we get busy, we tend to forget those kinds of things. I think it's just human nature, and so it has to be a learned behavior.
Hansen promotes many programs that reinforce the message to keep things sanitary and says it takes time to wash hands thoroughly.
It's really tough to wash your hands effectively.
The owner of Fluff Bakery uptown, Jessica Koppelwitz, says staying sanitary is key.
For our customers to feel comfortable coming in and having a clean spot, I think it's just something that we always focus on because it's always in front of people. So that's something that is pretty strictly enforced.
Signs like these are in many restaurants to remind workers to keep their hands clean. Jason Schrock, the assistant general manager for Buffalo Wild Wings, has specific guidelines for his employees.
In the kitchen, we have them use gloves all the time, so that helps out a lot. If they're not using gloves, we ask them to wash their hands after they take out the trash, after they touch raw meat.
Schrock says he asks his employees to use soap and wash in hot water that is at least 120 degrees for 20 to 30 seconds. If people are conscious of washing their hands, less germs are spread. The health department works hard to promote sanitation and make sure these restaurants as well as other public places in Athens remain on the same page. Reporting live for Athens Midday, I'm Melissa Ferguson.
Thanks, Melissa. To make sure you're really killing those cold and flu germs, visit athensmidday.com to see the right way to wash your hands.
Obese women are less likely to be screened for breast cancer. This comes from a new study in the Journal of Women's Health. Many overweight women say mammograms are too painful, and that's why they didn't get the screenings. Research shows more cases of breast cancer among obese women, and those cases are more likely to be fatal. 1 in 8 women develops breast cancer during her life. Gas prices in Ohio are up for the second week in a row. The state average is $3.10, up 2 cents from last week. A year ago, the average price per gallon was nearly 60 cents less. Experts say the cost of gas will continue to increase throughout the spring and summer.
State dollars are being flushed down the toilet. Ohio law requires state agencies to purchase toilet paper and other items for Ohio inmates from Ohio Penal Industries. According to the Columbus Dispatch, the state government isn't saving money on these purchases. A case of 96 rolls of toilet paper processed by inmates sells for about $49, while a Cleveland company sells the same amount for less than $42. The price differences for other goods are even higher. Well, did the groundhog see his shadow?
And icy conditions make driving hazardous around the country. Danny English will have the full weather forecast when we return.